Hi guys, it's Sierra from Cumpa, and today we're going to be talking about the coffee of the month featuring the Rufina from Panama. So this is actually quite a special coffee because when you think about Panama, a lot of people think about, the highlands in Cherokee where tons of geisha is produced. However, this coffee that we have today is a Canephora coffee produced in Penonomé, which is just a little bit outside of Panama City. And this coffee is produced at 450 meters above sea level. And I think what's so interesting is that you get to see how that terroir interacts with Canephora, which is obviously not something that Panama is known to produce, but we get to see a really good indication of quality and how strict processing is applied to something grown at a lower altitude. So the recipe that I've chosen today is actually going to be with the AeroPress. Because I find that with Canephora, sometimes people do struggle to get used to the slightly deeper flavor profile that it produces. So there's a lot more of those savory notes. There's a lot deeper fruits or darker fruits like plum, Concord grape, heavier tropicals. So I really wanted to find a way to balance out those aspects of the flavor profile by producing something that's going to be a concentrate, something that's quite juicy, and that you'll be able to dilute down to your preferred taste. So we're gonna start with the AeroPress, which I have here. And something that I find really useful actually is the Fellow Prismo. It kind of works a little bit like a ketchup bottle in that it has a one-way valve. So instead of having the mesh that comes with the original AeroPress, this allows me to just kind of brew my coffee on the table without any leakage or spillage, and it's just so much more convenient, which I'm really enjoying. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this on top of here. So today I'm working with 30 grams of coffee, ground at a slightly finer grind size, so I would say probably a little bit finer than your cupping. And I'm gonna be doing a 1:4 brew ratio. So that's 1 unit of coffee to 4 units of water. So that's 30 grams of coffee to about 120 grams of water. So today I'm actually using 88-degree water, that's 88 degrees Celsius. And I'm gonna start by pouring all the way up to my target of 120. Beautiful. And then just giving it a quick stir. You can use a paddle, you can use chopsticks, you can use a teaspoon. I'm going to be stirring until 25 seconds have passed. Whack this thing on. Move this off the scale because you don't want to be tearing and pushing down on your scale. And I'm going to be waiting till 40 seconds have passed. And I'm going to start pressing, which is about now. So we're going to be pushing down till about 1 minute. And you can see that the air has already been released through. And what you're going to end up with is basically a very concentrated liquid because it's a 1:4 brew ratio. Go ahead and remove this. And then what I would also do, and this is very much like the coffee nerd in me, and you can go ahead and try this out for yourself, is that I'm going to be using a refractometer to figure out what exactly my concentrate TDS is, and then dilute it to a point where I'm actually going to enjoy drinking it. So, give this a good swirl. And then I'm going to figure this out. So TDS stands for total dissolved solids. And what that means is we get to measure just how much of coffee has actually dissolved in the brew water and flowed down through into your vessel. And we get to figure out how concentrated the coffee actually is. So it requires a little bit of mathematics here. I'm going to be going ahead and doing those measurements. So if my concentrate TDS is 5.41 at this point, which is really, really high because Canephora is slightly more soluble. There's also much more caffeine in there, at least double the caffeine in there compared to Arabica coffee. So what we're going to find is that if I'm aiming for a TDS, a drinking TDS in my final brew of about 1.5, I'm going to go ahead and divide that. So 5.41 divided by 1.5. And then I'm going to multiply that by the actual yield of the coffee that I've received in this vessel. And I'm actually going to be multiplying that by the yield of the concentrate that I've received in this vessel. So we're going to go ahead and find out what that is now. Place that on top, tare it. I'm going to pop this right in here into my drinking cup. It's about 77 grams. So multiply it by 77. And that means that I have to dilute this up to 277 grams in my final yield. So I'm just going to go ahead and add 200 grams of water. And then in addition to that, I'm also going to go ahead and taste this right now. But what I imagine is that you're going to need some minerality in your water to balance out certain aspects of the coffee that you've brewed. So what I find about this Canephora from Kiva Estates in Penonomé, Panama, is that there's a really heavy syrupy body and beautiful, bright tropical fruits that I really want to enhance. So what I like to do when I brew coffee at home is I also like to use my mineral concentrates. These are from Apex Lab based in Australia. And the way I think about mineral concentrates is that they help to enhance the character of a coffee, not necessarily to add anything extra, not necessarily to change the character profile of a coffee too much that it becomes unrecognizable, but really to enhance what is already there and the positive attributes of this coffee. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some jam, which is there to kind of enhance that heavy syrupy body that we spoke about. Just 1 drop will do. And then I'm also going to go ahead and add some tonic, which is to bring out that beautiful tropical fruit acidity that I really enjoy. Just give it a good stir. You can add your minerals before or after you brew your coffee. You can add it directly into the brew water or directly into the coffee. It doesn't make too much of a difference. The way I like to do it is to make my base water relatively soft, so usually around 40 to 50 ppm, and then go ahead and mineralize after, because there's so much coffee that we're brewing on a day-to-day basis, and you want to give yourself that flexibility to dial in more coffees. So I'm going to go ahead and drink this. Yeah, there's a real kind of like Concord grape acidity to this that is so lovely. Beautiful syrupy body. There's a little bit of white fleshy fruit in there that reminds me of soursop, and a slight herbal note over the top and in the aftertaste as well. If you're interested in the Rufina, you can go ahead and click at the link in our bio above, because you'll be able to see all the information up there about the coffee, about the producer, and also how much is available. The Rufina is a micro lot, and we sell them in 30 kilo bags, so they're going to be snapped up really fast. Make sure to check it out and stay tuned for more. Cheers.